college football championship weekend, the college football playoff show, the rankings, everybody losing their mind, me included, over Notre Dame being left out. Miami gets in over Notre Dame. So does Alabama. Alabama, despite being destroyed by Georgia in the SEC championship game, 28-7, Bama is in. All right, let's talk about everything. First of all, the title of this video podcast, Notre Dame should have made it over Alabama. First of all, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me, I actually think in the end, if I had to choose, I would have put Notre Dame and Alabama both in over Miami. You can say that's not fair because Miami beat Notre Dame heads up early in the season. What was that? Was that the first game of the season? I remember watching the end of that game. Notre Dame on the road, though, lose by 3 points. So again, credit the Hurricanes. They won the game. At home, very close game. Are they significantly better, or were they significantly better than Notre Dame during that game? No, it was a super close game. But again, all the credit in the world for winning the game. But then fast forward, we're talking now 3 months later, we're making decisions. So let's break it all down. And I think it's important to discuss biases. I'm an Ohio State fan. I do enjoy the Big Ten. Am I anti-SEC? If you follow me on Twitter, you probably think that. I like to have fun. Look, the SEC has enough cheerleaders. The Big Ten needs a few more, although each conference has its own network now. Obviously, ESPN is just balls deep with the SEC, and Fox is with the Big Ten. So here's the deal. I've never been a fan of Notre Dame. I don't necessarily dislike Notre Dame. I kind of dislike Notre Dame under Brian Kelly because I think Brian Kelly's just very unlikable. But look, Marcus Freeman's a Buckeye, and it's hard to dislike Marcus Freeman. Here's my take on this. I've also said for years, I think that Notre Dame should join a conference. I've said that for years, that they should join the Big Ten. And they're punished for not being in a conference and not getting the opportunity to play a conference championship game, which I find funny because now a lot of people, especially from the SEC, are saying that conference championship games are totally meaningless, which I don't agree with. I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all, but you do have to show up and play. So right there, I'm not a Notre Dame fan, and I've said for years that Notre Dame should join a conference, and I've always thought that, and I think it should be the Big Ten. But here's the deal. Notre Dame plays early in the season, big-time opponents, and lose close to both of them. Miami on the road, and then Texas A&M as well. Super close games. Miami, 3 points? I believe Texas A&M, 1 point. Check me on that. I believe that's the case. Then Notre Dame rings off 10 straight wins. And here's another part of this. You can say it's not supposed to be about anything else but 2025, but we know that's not true. We know that's not true. Even if you're an SEC fan and you're an Alabama fan, you know the Alabama mystique is one of the big reasons. The Alabama brand is one of the big reasons why Alabama got in. Alabama got in because Nick Saban won whatever it was, 6 or 7 national championships, however many he won. I know he won one with LSU. That's part of the reason Alabama got in 2025. And I'm not joking. No other team, in my opinion, no other team could have got in the playoff after that performance in the SEC championship game besides Alabama. Maybe Georgia. I have all the respect in the world for Georgia and Kirby Smart and what they've accomplished. Now, I haven't seen Georgia get rolled like that in a long time. You tell me in the comments of when's the last time Georgia got rolled like that. What I'm saying is Alabama got in because they're Alabama. I live here in St. Louis, Missouri. A lot of friends and family. I know a ton of people who are Mizzou fans. And you know this. Mizzou's in the SEC. If that was Mizzou playing in the SEC championship game, and they were never in the game for the entire game, because that's the truth. That's the truth. Alabama was never in that game. What was it? It was 21-zip at the end of the third quarter. The final score was 28-7. That was an embarrassing performance. Now, it wasn't 42-zip, but it was 28-7, and they never had a chance to win that game. I also find it funny. And look, I've been critical of Kirk Herbstreit. He works for ESPN, and some of his comments the last couple of years, they don't jive with me. Last year when Indiana got beat in the first round by Notre Dame, and he said some of these teams don't belong. You knew he was talking about Indiana, by the way. Did not have that same energy for an SEC team like Tennessee that got absolutely housed by Ohio State. But that thought last year was, oh, Indiana's in, they shouldn't be in. A team like Alabama should be in. A team like Ole Miss, teams that didn't make it last year. And look, this Indiana team this year is totally different. We'll get to that. But my point is, no other team in the country, I think, maybe Ohio State, if it was a Big Ten championship game, I mean, you'd have to be the strongest brand in football. And it goes to show you, the brands don't mean as much as they used to, because Notre Dame is one of the biggest brands in college football, and they did not get in. But I don't think any other team in college football could get smoked like Alabama did in the SEC championship game for their third loss. They also have a terrible loss early in the season to Florida State and still make the college football playoff. They're making it based on being Alabama. They're making it based on Bear Bryant years ago. They're making it based on Nick Saban 15, 10, 5 years ago. And look, I'm not a hater. I joke on Twitter. We have fun on Twitter. Kalen DeBoer, give him all the credit in the world for taking Washington to the national championship game. What was that? 3 years ago. Runner up. Recruited Michael Penix Jr. out there. Runner up in the country the year they lost to Michigan. He gets the Alabama job. Give him all the credit in the world. Everybody knows that's just an impossible job to follow arguably the greatest coach of all time in Nick Saban. Expectations through the roof. Saban was undefeated a lot, or one loss. I think most people get it. Like, you can't be undefeated every year. Everybody realizes there was going to be a drop-off after Nick Saban. And also, we're in a different world. This is NIL. This is portal. But so far, Kalen DeBoer has underperformed. It hasn't been terrible, but he has slightly underperformed. Didn't make the college football playoff in year one. Had a terrible loss to Florida State early. Had a terrible loss to Georgia in the SEC championship game. So you have 3 losses each year, and I'm talking regular season or the conference championship season before we get to the college football playoff or the bowl season. But here's the thing, another thing. We're crediting some of these teams based on their brand and based on their history. And I said this earlier, Kirby Smart, Mark Richt, the coach before at Georgia. Kirby Smart has earned the benefit of the doubt at Georgia. He has 2 national championships. They show up. Georgia has earned the benefit of the doubt. Nick Saban's Alabama team, absolutely over 15 years, whatever it was, earned the benefit of the doubt. Nick Saban won championships on championships on championships, okay? Kalen DeBoer so far at Alabama has not earned the benefit of the doubt. And this was essentially a 50-50 call. Now, again, I would put Alabama and Notre Dame over Miami. But at the end of the day, it really came down to Alabama and Notre Dame, even though if you look at the rankings, Miami is behind Alabama because Alabama is 9 and Miami is 10. Notre Dame is 11. BYU 12. So going into that, let's talk about benefit of the doubt, by the way. We got a couple commenters here. Laura Cartwright, I'm going to sub to you because you sound like a good guy. She put a bud guy. She didn't mean bad guy. She said good guy. Appreciate that, Laura. And then Anna says hello, and she's giving me a trophy. I really appreciate that. Okay, get your comments in. I will read them on the air here on YouTube. The people listening back on podcast, this is no longer live, but please comment after the fact. Okay, so getting back to earning the benefit of the doubt. And again, I'm not a Notre Dame fan. Isn't it fair to say, though, Notre Dame kind of earned the benefit of the doubt last year? Are we acting like these human beings don't take these things into consideration? Notre Dame, they were runners up. Ohio State beat them at the end. I think it was, what was it, a 10-point game, 11-point game? I can't remember the score. It wasn't embarrassing. Notre Dame was in it for most of the game. Let me look up that score here real quick, just so I want to say it was 10, 11-point game. College football playoff championship. Let's see. Bear with me. Yeah, 11-point game. 34-23 the final. Ohio State beats Notre Dame in the college football playoff. Let's go to Notre Dame, though. And this is obviously last year. So I'm trying to look at their schedule from last year. So when they get to the college football playoff, they beat Indiana 27-17. And they beat Georgia. That's an impressive win, beating Georgia 23-10. And they beat Penn State 27-24 in the semifinal. And they lose to Ohio State 34-23. But my point is, don't you think Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame kind of earned the benefit of the doubt on a 50-50 call? That's what this comes down to. It's human beings making selections. To me, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama has not earned that benefit of the doubt. Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame earned the benefit of the doubt last year, getting to the championship game of the college football playoff. Here's another part. Notre Dame had those 2 losses early against really good teams I mentioned. Then they rang off 10 straight wins. I understand they don't play Murderers Row. I also want them to join a conference like you. But look at Alabama over the last 6 weeks or so. Not impressive at all, even in some of their wins. Not impressive at all. And that should matter more. What happens most recently should certainly happen more than what happens, especially in the first week of the season. And in the same way, I'll, in a way, throw out the Alabama loss to Florida State, kind of in the same way that I'm saying that doesn't mean as much as Notre Dame playing a really close game and losing at Miami by 3 points. But that was a really close game. So it is what it is. Look at the Ohio State-Indiana game. Indiana won. Give them all the credit in the world. Did anybody walk away from that game? By the way, I was super impressed with Indiana. But did anybody walk away from that game saying that Indiana was far superior to Ohio State? No. And you know what? If they meet again in the college football playoff national championship game, and by the way, not a given by any means, Ohio State would have to get by Georgia, you would think, which is going to be tough. I have all the respect in the world for Georgia. But does anybody really think that if Indiana and Ohio State met again in the national championship game, that Ohio State couldn't win that game? Absolutely, Ohio State could win that game. That doesn't mean they will. But look, Ohio State was the best team in the country for about, 3 months. And now Indiana is going to be the number 1 team in the country until somebody knocks them off. So the Big Ten's on a nice little run. That's also a part of this. I joke on Twitter, I'm kind of anti-SEC, but I think when you listen to me here, my takes are pretty reasonable. I got Romulo saying hi, hello, and I have Silent Psych Facts saying hi, boss. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching live, everybody. I appreciate it. I really didn't like the justification for why Alabama got in. You could tell the committee members, you could tell the gentleman speaking on behalf of the committee, was it Hunter Yurachek? I mean, that's embarrassing. I'm sorry. It's embarrassing when you're quoting, did you see Alabama playing Auburn in the first half? They quoted a win over Tennessee. Tennessee's 8-4, guys. In no other conference, here's where I will get into the conference bias. In no other conference in college football would you ever credit beating an 8-4 team. You know, Mizzou's 8-4, Tennessee's 8-4, nice teams, nice seasons. Nobody would ever talk about the Big Ten and say, they beat who's 8-4 in the Big Ten? Like in Illinois, I think, maybe Washington, Iowa, teams like that. Some of those teams might be 9-3. I can't remember. But my point is, nobody would be like, hey, but they beat Iowa 8-4, or they beat Illinois 8-4. Let's give them credit. That would never happen. Those teams aren't ranked, by the way. Mizzou, Tennessee, they were earlier in the year. But to try to justify that, oh, they beat Tennessee. Did you watch the first half of the Iron Bowl? Like, come on, folks. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then I know I talk about Kirk Herbstreit a lot, but some of his comments, and look, I respect Kirk Herbstreit. I remember interviewing him at the Big Ten Media Day years ago. This was for football in the summer in Chicago, probably 2006, 19 years ago. Got nothing against the guy. But let's be honest with the ESPN bias towards the SEC. I mean, it's getting to be kind of gross, right? He said, he's broadcasting the game, by the way. You could tell when it started to be, let's lobby for Alabama during that game, when Georgia's smoking them. You could tell it started to lobby for Alabama during that game. And he said something along the lines on the college football selection show. Well, it was 21-zip there, and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. What's going to happen if it goes the other way? It was embarrassing, Kirk. It was embarrassing. It was 21-zip at the end of the third quarter. It ended 28-7. Oh, so Alabama gets in because they scored one freaking touchdown? They were never in that game whatsoever. So there are my thoughts there. And you know what? I will say this. I have a lot of fun arguing with people about this. Big Cat from Barstool said this, and it's true. Arguing about the college football playoff, it's the greatest arguing in sports. I look forward to it. I really do. Every year, if you look at my Twitter timeline, I don't tweet that much. And then right about this time of year, I just go crazy. It's a lot of fun. And you know what? We argued when it was the BCS, which two we're in. We argued about three. It got to the college football playoff, the Final Four. We argued about 5. Now we're in year 2 of the 12-team college football playoff, and we're arguing about 13. And guess what, folks? If they expand to 16, I promise you, we're going to be arguing about 17. Because look at 17 this year. Tell you what, let's look at 17. 17. So this year, now I know we're incorporating like the Tulane and the James Madison situation, which that's another thing before I get to that point. In a 12-team playoff, only one group of 5 teams should get in based on the fact that they're not in the top rankings. If you're undefeated and you're at Boise back in the day and you're going off and you're 12-0 or 13-0 after your championship game and you have impressive wins, then absolutely that team from a group of 5 should get in the college football playoff. But we shouldn't arbitrarily be putting especially 2 teams in a top 12 that are not deserving based on rankings. I understand one of them getting in. I do think that's the joy of the NCAA tournament for basketballs, the Cinderellas. I don't mind one team getting in. Even there, though, I almost feel like you should. I almost feel like you should be there based on ranking. I don't mind 1. 2 is way too many, especially when here's the other part of this. And I know I'm all over the place, but like the whole goal is to get the most deserving national champion. And that's why you needed to expand. Okay. They had to expand because some years with 2, you weren't getting the best champ. Then with 4 even. I mean, look, the first year of the college football playoff with 4, Ohio State won it all as the 4 seed. I think Alabama won it one of those years as the 4 seed. That proves to you that some of those years, the 5th seed probably could have won. The 6th seed probably could have won. Last year, Ohio State is the 8th seed. Ohio State won it all as the 8th seed. So in some of these years, it's not just going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4 that are going to win the national championship. You do want to have the most deserving team win the national championship. And that's where I think it's really a shame this year. It's not just Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has a chance to win the national championship. I'm not saying they're the favorite. I think they could win the national championship. I would even say Texas. Texas could win the national championship. They wouldn't be the favorite, but that wouldn't surprise me. They kept it close within 7 points of Ohio State, which was the best anybody had did until Indiana the other day. And they have 3 big wins. What do they have? They have Texas A&M, I believe, and also, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt? Check me on that. But they've beaten good teams. Yeah, they have some bad losses. They have a terrible loss to Florida. But Alabama's in with a horrible loss to Florida State. And the other loss for Texas is Georgia. I think it was 35-10. But that game was actually closer. I remember watching that game late, and it got out of hand late, if I'm remembering correctly. You want the best teams to have a chance to win the national championship. So in saying that, we probably have to expand again, honestly. But let's look at the top 16 or 17, because I think it's fun to look at the fact that we would still be arguing. So this year, let's just leave the Tulanes and the James Madisons out of it. So look, the argument would be Arizona 9-3, Michigan 9-3, Virginia 10-3, right? Utah is 15, 10-2. But look, the argument would be Virginia. Virginia falls after losing to Duke. They're 10-3. They're 19 right now. The argument would be, well, why would Virginia play a conference championship game and lose their spot in the top 16? I think what they should do, actually, here's what I would do. You can't get rid of the weekend of games. People love games. The conference championship games don't really matter, especially if you're Bama and you lose. I think you just turn those into super playing games, right? Like, I'm cool if you keep the 12 team. What if you had a weekend of just a bunch of playing games? What if you had 4 playing games? That would essentially open it up to 16 teams, right? You would have, let's just say in the rankings, how would this go? You could have, how would it go? It would go like 9 would play 16, 10 would play 15, 11 would play 14, 12 would play 13, something like that. You'd have 4 playing games to create the actual 12-team playoff. Something like that. I think something like that is possible. I'm not against that. Let's see. Got a couple more comments. The flaw of the college football playoffs has been exposed. Win the national championship, they lost 2 out of 3 ranked teams. You talking about Texas? Okay, but Ohio State lost to Michigan last year at home as a 3-touchdown favorite and won the national championship easily, by the way. They went and destroyed teams. They destroyed Tennessee, Oregon. Texas wasn't destroyed. And then Notre Dame was close, but they did cover in that game. I remember. I like to throw a bet down as well, folks. Bro, Colgate Cargo? I don't know what that means. Princess, what does that mean? You like Colgate? The toothpaste or the college? Okay, but here's another part about this. The college football playoff, the championship games seem to only selectively matter for the college football playoff. I'm not saying BYU should have made it, but folks, doesn't it look very hypocritical when you drop BYU? BYU gets throttled in that game by Texas Tech. What was it, 34-7? Something of that nature. I'm trying to find it for you. It was 34-7 to Texas Tech. They had lost to Texas Tech at Texas Tech earlier in the season, 29-7. I'm not saying BYU is one of the best 12 teams in the country. I don't know. My point is more so this. You punished BYU. You punished BYU for getting smoked in the conference championship game, and you dropped them out of the rankings. It was a bad game, ugly game. Alabama did essentially the same thing. Alabama got blown out. Is it fair to say blown out? Whatever. It was 28-7, but it was never a game. They were never in the game, and you didn't drop them. That is super hypocritical. You can't justify that. You can't defend it. You can say, yeah, I think Alabama's better than BYU. Oh, by the way, I agree with you. But you can't justify dropping BYU and not dropping Alabama. Clearly, the conference championship games only matter in terms of being dropped if you're not Alabama, if you're not in the SEC. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's be real about this. And I've said this for years. I have all the respect in the world for what the SEC did for about 15, 20 years there. Start when they beat my Buckeyes back in 2006, the Florida Urban Meyer team, Tim Tebow, Chris Leak. They went on a run. They dominated college football from whatever that was, 2006 to, let's just say 2022, 16 years or so. Georgia wins 2 national championships at the end there. By the way, that last year, Ohio State is a sliver from beating Georgia. And then remember, you'd go on to play TCU. Georgia beat them freaking, 65-7, something crazy. My point being, I have all the respect in the world for the SEC for what they did for that 16-year span, whatever it was. I'm not a hater. And Georgia right now scares me. Georgia scares me. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama. I just saw you got the floor wiped with you by Georgia the other day. My point is, this is a different era of college football. And yes, the SEC is stronger in the middle. They're stronger at the bottom. But Mississippi State being better than Purdue, that doesn't really factor in that much to what we're talking about, which is the college football playoff. And you can't deny this. This is not me being a Big Ten hunk. The Big Ten has ran the show the last 3 seasons. I'm including this season. 23, 24, 25. The Big Ten has ran the show. And oh, by the way, the SEC hasn't made a title game in those first 2 years. We'll see what happens this year. I think Georgia could absolutely make a title game. They'd probably have to beat Ohio State. I can't wait to watch that game. I think it'd be fantastic if they both make it. My point is, after Georgia wins 2022, the next year, Michigan from the Big Ten beats Washington from the Pac-12. Washington now in the Big Ten. Last year, Ohio State, Big Ten, beats Notre Dame, the team that's left out this year. Notre Dame obviously not in a conference. Oh, by the way, last year, who was number 1 essentially the whole season? Oregon, out of the Big Ten, right? Who was number 1 all of this season? Ohio State, out of the Big Ten. Who's number 1 now? Indiana, out of the Big Ten. Look, this may only be a 2 or 3 year blip. It might get right back. Look, it might be a 2-year blip because Georgia might win it this year, and I'll shut up. But you can't deny that the top of the conferences right now, the Big Ten in the last 3 years has been much better than the SEC. And I was arguing with somebody on Twitter about this, saying they were saying the Big Ten is a one-trick pony, and they were kind of talking about Ohio State, which I get. I'm an Ohio State fan. I like to have fun with people and debate. But the last 3 years, the Big Ten has had three different conference champs. None of them are Ohio State. It was Michigan in 23. It was Oregon last year, and it's now Indiana this year. And throw Ohio State having a national championship last year in there. And of course, Michigan won the national championship now in the 2023 season. All I'm saying is right now, at the top, the Big Ten is running the show. It's not going to last forever, but NIL and portal has changed things. You absolutely cannot, you really can't disagree with that. So let's see here. We got some more comments. Life user. My beef with Notre Dame is you represent a Catholic university in the face of adversity, act like a spoiled child and set a bad example, bowing out of a bowl game because things didn't go your way. I agree with you there. I understand that Notre Dame is pissed. I think you got to play the game. I know apparently the players decided on this, but I don't agree with that decision. I think you got to play the game for your fans, for your players, for the seniors who are never going to get to play another football game. A lot of guys will go to the NFL. A lot of guys will play next year for Notre Dame or other schools. But I think there'd be a lot of guys that want one more football game. In a cool area, you know, bowl games, usually you're going somewhere nice and nice little mini vacation. Let's see. We have Byron. They shouldn't have had 3. Now, what do you mean by that? 3 losses? Talking about Texas or Alabama? Let's see. Life user. Yeah, they should have been in the top 12. Tulane and James Madison got in because the system is set up for conference winners. Yes, they have to get rid of that rule as well, which they will. They're tweaking this as they go, folks. Last year, you had the stupid thing with the buys where the conference champs got buys, which they shouldn't have, and it created some bad matchups. They changed that rule. This year, the whole thing that it's the top 5 conference champs in terms of ranking. Then all of a sudden you get Tulane and James Madison both sliding in. I promise you they will change that rule as well. They're going to change a lot of rules, folks, because they need to. Yeah. And then Byron saying 2 group of 5 is ridiculous. I agree. And look, I root for the little guy. I am an Ohio State football fan, but I went to Bradley for college. Bradley doesn't have a football team. We have a nice basketball program. We're a mid-major. I understand it's fun to be the Cinderella here and there. I understand Bradley basketball is not Duke basketball. It's not North Carolina basketball. It's a different story in the NCAA tournament because 68 teams get in. I like the idea of one team, one smaller team getting in the college football playoff. If it's 12. I don't like 2. You could probably even sell me on no teams. You could probably sell me on no teams from the group of 5 getting in if they're not deserving by ranking. I think I'm there. I think I'm there with that. because of the fact that I just think it's a travesty in the football world, not a travesty in real life, but a travesty in the football conversation for Notre Dame and also Texas, I think, two teams that could win the national championship, that are contenders to win the national championship, don't get in. Everybody knows JMU, nice story. Tulane, nice story. Hey, my dad went to Tulane for grad school. I love the Green Wave. I love New Orleans, baby. But come on, they have no chance of actually winning the national championship. They got smoked by Ole Miss, and now you have a rematch. So there you go. 31 minutes in. Thank you guys for watching. We're just going to end like this, though. I got to tell you guys, my St. Louis people, Triad Bank. Best thing I ever did for my rental property business, taking all my commercial loans from a big national bank that didn't care about me to a local bank, Triad Bank, working with my guy, Matthew Tobin, for the last 5-6 years. I think we've had 6 or 7 different loans. 6, 7. I hate that. I think we've had 6 or 7 different loans with them over the years. We have 2 now. Just bought a rental property at the end of June. They hooked me up. And then line of credit. We started our rental property business off the line of credit from this house right here. Then you have St. Louis Equipment. There's some snow on the ground out there. They got the salt. They got 4 locations, new location in Jefferson County, DeSoto. So this time of year, salt. If you need your plow service, you want to buy a plow. They got mowers for the spring. St. Louis Lawn Care. They'll cut your grass. They'll do your mulch. They do landscaping. They planted some arborvitae back there in my backyard, a juniper that looks beautiful in my front yard. They planted boxwoods. They trimmed the boxwoods. They do it all. St. Louis Lawn Care, St. Louis Equipment, my guy Tim Jenkerson, and then also Triad Bank, triadbanking.com, my guy Matthew Tobin. He will hook you up for all your commercial lending needs. There you go. I'll end like this. My Buckeyes, they got beat. Good game, fun game. Indiana, they're tough, man. They are tough. All the credit in the world to Kurt Cignetti in Indiana, #1 team in the country. That's a pretty cool story. I got nothing against Indiana. Got great memories from hanging out at IU back in the day in college. Can't wait for the college football playoff. Kind of stinks as a Buckeye fan. I got to wait like 24 days, 23, 24 days before they play on that Friday on New Year's Eve, I believe, December 31st. But you have Army-Navy next week. And then you have the college football playoff first round games after that. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching on Charlie Marlow YouTube. Please give us a subscribe, give us a like, share the show, tell your friends about it. And Kenny Wallace Media. I know we're NASCAR all the time, baby. A lot of NASCAR lawsuit. We're trying to mix it up with some college football as well. All right. Love you all. Peace out. Thanks.